Joining us now to discuss the FBI report and the latest developments in the presidential race is Bart Marquise. He's a former presidential campaign advisor and former U.S. diplomat. Bart, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. To begin, I want to first ask you about the FBI report. Media reports are saying both campaigns were targeted, but the FBI hasn't confirmed that. Leading up to November, we've seen several reports on the CCP trying to influence down-ballot races in this election. How do you read this? What's in it for the CCP?
Oh, everything. The CCP is heavily dependent on the American economy for their economic growth, and they are looking to dominate the 21st century as America dominated the 20th century. And so they want to find out anything they can about the leadership of this country. They will be looking for ideas on whom the candidates talk to, what the network of people is around each candidate. They'll be looking for information about where they'll be and when they will be there. And of course, they'll be looking for any kind of slip where people will talk about something confidential, some policy matter, some personnel matter. If they can find a way to exercise influence over people that are close to the future president, then that's solid gold for them.
And Bart, we are seeing record early voting turnout across multiple states. We're also seeing some big moves in the media this year. The LA Times and Washington Post choosing not to endorse a presidential candidate. What does that tell you about the state of the race right now?
Those two non-endorsements by those two newspapers are a shocking move to me. They indicate a complete lack of confidence in the Harris-Walz ticket. They differ slightly from one another. The Washington Post was a simple, we're not going to endorse anybody kind of decision. The Los Angeles Times was a little more complex. The owner of the Los Angeles Times said, we're not going to endorse anybody, but we will put a side-by-side comparison of the policy platforms and the campaign ideas of the two candidates. The editor-in-chief resigned rather than present a fair side-by-side comparison of the two candidates. So there was a little slight difference there. But in both cases, these are papers that have always endorsed the Democrat candidate for president, going back 30, 40, 50 years, and going back to Richard Nixon times. And to not endorse says, we really cannot stand the Harris-Walz ticket. We don't like Trump either, and we're not going to endorse Republicans, but we really don't like these guys.
And speaking of big changes, there's some talk of Trump potentially winning the popular vote this year, which hasn't happened to a Republican presidential candidate in 20 years. What is the likelihood of that happening, do you think?
I have been feeling for 2 months that it's likely, and I see the polls shifting now in his favor. The Wall Street Journal poll came out yesterday, day before yesterday, showing him 2 points ahead. There were rumors that it was going to be 3 points ahead, and at the last minute it showed 2. That's a substantial shift, especially for a candidate like Donald Trump, who consistently underpolls or outperforms his polling by anywhere from 3 to 6 points. I'm going to go out on a limb, Tiffany. I expect to see a decisive win in the popular vote, 52, 53% in the popular vote. And I think we'll know more about the election results on election night than a lot of people are predicting.
And tonight in Texas, we have dueling events. Trump will be on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Beyonce will make an appearance at Harris's rally. Trump is also going to hold an event at Madison Square Garden in the heart of New York City on Sunday. How effective do you think these big names will be at moving the needle for, say, undecided voters?
I think that Joe Rogan will be very effective at moving the needle among the younger, the Generation X through Generation Z voters. He is probably the single best known name in podcasting and in information projection, information broadcasting to those, that series, that demographic, that age demographic. Beyonce, I think, will draw a great crowd, and there will be a lot of enthusiasm in the crowd. The thing to look for is to see when people start leaving the event And do they schedule Beyonce before Harris speaks or after she speaks? If she's there before, then she's there to draw people there. If she's there after, if she's performing after Harris speaks, then she's there to keep people there so they don't walk out when Harris is speaking. That's the indicator to look for. The Madison Square Garden event, I think, is going to be historic. It's a sellout crowd. It's an enormous event. It's an enormous venue, and it's right in the heart of deeply Democrat New York City, and he still sold it out. You've seen some really unfortunate comments from Hillary Clinton and James Carville in the last couple of days, trying to somehow link the venue to a single Nazi party or German friendship Bund meeting in 1939, ignoring the fact that Bill Clinton was nominated there in 1992 and Jimmy Carter was nominated there in 1976 and again in 1980, and ignoring the history of the Democrat Party in the 1924 convention held in Madison Square Garden, attended by so many members of the Ku Klux Klan in white robes that they called it colloquially the Klan Bake, because there were so many Klan members there. And for them to sort of bring up unpleasant associations with Madison Square Garden itself, I think is backfiring on their party and on their candidate.
Bart Marquise, former presidential campaign advisor and former U.S. diplomat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tiffany. Thanks for having me on.